research institutions around the world acting as the third parties, government departments and various other contributors, sort of a bit like Wikipedia Foundation does now, but it's in fact a lot more complex because it's not just the code, it's all of the standards about how you codify the data, how you codify the questions, how you construct your analytics around it that means that it works, how you actually manage your contacts and your survey frames to give you the quality of data, of analytics. That's what we're learning now, and we have to be able to industrialise that to an extent where it could be unleashed with a business model that would keep those foundations being maintained and extended. But yeah, I think it's got legs and really needs to walk tall, if I'm not mangling the
Yeah, but I mean, that's really great. Lucy's question. Lucy's challenge is you can keep your business model, okay, or the benefits to Queensland can continue, although Lucy can't answer the question of how the money continues.
No, as a service model. So what you're providing is a service to government and their businesses. And as the service that you're providing, in the same way that, using the Linux base for the software that you use hasn't replaced a professional development group who have come in and used that as the basis for something that they've built, setting the code free and allowing other people to pick this tool up and to play with it, I don't think replaces the services, what Peter's talked about, the relationships and the service that's being provided.
Well, it sounds like you've answered your own question then, Lucy, because what's on top of available open source code is a whole series of bespoke development that has been described by the panel as the only in the world. So you've got that, plus the human services on top of that, i.e. all the work that Grant and his group do to be really constantly updating and interacting with the industry sector. There's a whole series of things that sit on top of the code. Code is the least of our...
Danger of going round and round in circles. I'd like to give Lou the last word on this.
Just a quick one. Being in the web game for about 15 years, I've seen a lot of stuff-ups with your model. And Creative Commons isn't as practical. It's sometimes practical and it sometimes works like Wikipedia. However, if you look at a thing called Mambo, which turned into Joomla, which is a content management system that runs a lot of websites, it's got so many band-aids on it, it's got so many problems on it, that we have 400 clients internationally, and we're constantly fixing bugs and problems because of that model was described about 8 years ago for that particular content management system for websites. And we've got some of the biggest organisations, let's call it in Brisbane or Queensland, running these websites. And because of Creative Commons, it's actually caused major headaches, and it costs the entities more money to put band-aids on these things because developers have got in there on forums and stuffed around with the code base. My second part to that is, and I still agree with you, I think it should be opened up, and I'm still one to open it up and let it go. However, an organisation to be competitively viable, like QT/CCI, needs to retain some IP. It needs to hold the IP and go forth with the IP to make it different and more competitive in the marketplace, not only from a creative industries point of view, but only from a business level. And that goes across any innovation cycle that they're doing, across any application development. And I think this should be leveraged as much as physically possible and then talked about what you're talking about a bit further down the track, opening it up and having maybe two versions. One is for the good of the Creative Commons and the open source community, and let them play with it and do what you're talking about, and value the research of what you're doing and leveraging that, but also let them keep going with a commercially viable bit of kit that allows them to be better than any other that's trying to sort of copy their bit of IP.
Actually, I am going to now claim the last word on this myself. Just to go back to the point that this is not just the code platform. I mean, two key things here that I see in this are the trusted framework, because we're asking people to give, really core confidential data, labelled data. So the issue of who are trusted custodians of this sort of framework, and I think it's really interesting that you can have an organisation like CCI, a research centre that is regarded as a trusted custodian of this sort of data. And second, that it's relationship-based. So it's the relationships with industry bodies, government and so forth that extracts the benefit. So I think we've got to think about those levels too in terms of how you might leverage it and roll it out in other areas. But I am declaring that the last word because it's my last word. But I'm going to round this session off by going back to Lindy because I asked her a really awful question before. So I'll ask you a nice question. You talked about the 4 programs you have focused on in your division. You know, heat architecture, heat fashion, Ulysses, and then benchmarker. Now you've done all that and it's all tracked and so well, what are you going to do next?
No, we haven't done all that. That's just the beginning. So Ulysses is just the beginning. There's also only 8 of us, and we do those 4 major programs in comparison to other tourism and food and manufacturing. The government's getting amazing ROI out of my team. We should only be doing half the program in comparison to the others, comparing resources. Ulysses just started. That is the biggest program that we're doing, and we're prototyping 12 businesses with spectacular results on their bottom line now, mainstream businesses. The first time they've ever had creativity and design embedded in them. And as I said before, it's revolutionary in Australia. And so that will grow bigger and bigger very quickly. So I can't do any more because the 4 are still growing.
Fair enough. Any final questions? There's one here on this side.
I just want to ask about all this Queensland centric. I'm wondering when you're going to take that to all of the other states, and I'm thinking like mining industries in Western Australia. You know, all of those other listening to President Obama, you know, lots of other industries do it, and I think it just sounds fantastic, and that would be fabulous for the rest of Australia.
Particularly for Victoria.
We would love to. It's now close where we can contemplate that very close. Previously, because of the bag of bones, as Wendy puts it, the way it was cobbled together originally for the pilot, to scale it was difficult. Now we starting to get some scale-free technology and approaches and methodologies. We've still got some way to go, but we'd like to get Screen Australia, we'd like to get all of the other state development bodies on board and get it rolling.
Well, I mean, the reality is that we have real deficits in business scalability. We're a research centre, and we need help, actually. We need a lot of help, so maybe you can help us. No, seriously, how do we scale without killing the people we're working on? These are the kind of generic questions of business growth and scaling up, you know, commercialising R&D, commercialising in the kind of, you know, we use that word advisedly in the context of the debate that we just had, but it's about sustainability through growth. And we don't also want in any way to detract from our first and only and best client, D.B. Johnson. So we can't in any way detract from that level of service while trying to grow the business in other dimensions. So, I mean, I don't have an answer to it, but if anyone here does, I'm serious. You come and talk to us because we do think we've got something that's very scalable. But we face exactly the problems that I was doing. How you do it on the base that we've got, and without in any way damaging the relationship we have with our primary client.
And, I mean, beyond the creative industries, I mean, the thing that really profoundly shocked me during 2008 Innovation Review is you look at these vast number of government programs, none of which measure or can measure actual impact and output and return on investment. And in fact, half the time, the program administrators actually like it that way because no one can prove whether or not they're doing a good job. But you know, it just staggers me, the lack of attention to looking at impact and outcome measures around economic development across the board.
And it's why the traditional industry sectors are getting a lot of the loot. I mean, $9.6 billion annually from the federal government is going to the innovation sector.
And how much into the auto industry?
Exactly.
But we won't go there.
Into creative industries, not one. And, you know, we're key to innovation in any business. You know, it's intrinsic, it's inherent. Design is key to innovation. Design is what makes innovation real in any business, no matter what product or service you're flogging, but none of that government dollar. So that's 9.6 billion annually going into creative industry. So it keeps reverting back to the traditional because we're not measuring ourselves.
And that's why.
Isn't there.
And that's why the Ulysses program and the exemplar Better by Design program in New Zealand is, I think, just, well, unique, but game-changing. And for the first time, you're really embedding the creative industries design at the core of corporate strategy and decision-making, and really making a difference. And I think it's really exciting. I think we've exhausted ourselves, so I'd like you to join me in thanking the panel for that fabulous presentation.